A man wakes up with a burlap sack over his face. Not metaphorically. Literally, every single morning John Kreese opens his eyes inside a cloth bag he put on himself the night before because without it his brain won't stay quiet long enough to let the nightmares begin. He reaches for the sedatives, then the alcohol, then he drives to the factory where nobody talks to him and he talks to nobody. He clocks in, he clocks out, he drives home, he sits in silence, he does it all again, 4 years, same loop, same wait. Same question hanging in the air like smoke from a fire that never fully died. One morning behind the wheel, John Kreese finally answers that question. He cuts the brake line, he puts the car in gear, he stares at the concrete barrier ahead of him and doesn't look away. That's where we begin, not at the explosion, though that's coming. Not at the conspiracy buried beneath it, though that's coming too. We start here with a man who used to be the most lethal soldier in the US Special Forces, sitting in a car with cut brakes, holding the wheel and deciding whether to let go of it. Pull back, 4 years back, because nothing about what this man has become makes sense without understanding what he was and what he lost. John Kreese was a name that meant something. 3 tours in Afghanistan, multiple deployments in Iraq. When the generals needed a target taken out and couldn't afford the question marks, they called Kreese. He was the kind of operator who made other operators nervous, calm under fire in the way that only the very best or the very broken ever truly are. He designed mission architecture the way some people design buildings, load-bearing walls in every decision, structural integrity all the way through. And when they gave him the Mexico City operation and industrial district extraction against a reinforced target, he treated it like the dozen missions that came before it. Just another problem with a technical solution. He had 12 people with him. 12 people who trusted his plan. The assault on the factory started clean. His team moved on the target. Enemy forces hit back faster than anticipated, larger numbers, better position, which meant someone had leaked the operation, which meant someone in the chain was a problem, but that was a problem for after. Kreese held the corridor, fought off 5 soldiers at the door, threw a grenade to buy time, checked his watch, checked his comm, went to the surveillance monitors to confirm his team's status. They were on the floor, all 12 of them, faces covered, hands tied, and before Kreese could even reach for a weapon, the shots came, clean, systematic, over in under 15 seconds. He was the only one who survived. That fact has lived inside him for 4 years, not as a tragedy he's working through, as a verdict he's waiting to carry out against himself. He was the one who planned the entry. He picked the angles, he assigned the positions. 12 people executed on a warehouse floor because John Kreese had a plan and it didn't account for the thing it should have accounted for. Guilt isn't just a feeling, it's a full-time occupation, and Kreese has been doing that job without breaks for 4 years. The wall comes up fast. The crash is bad enough to do damage, cuts across his hands, bruised legs, a car that will never run again, but not bad enough to do the job he needed it to do. He wakes up in a hospital bed. Rabin is sitting across from him, looking deeply unimpressed. Out of respect, Rabin says, you're supposed to salute a superior officer when he walks in. I'll let it go given your current situation. A beat. What were you thinking about before you hit the wall? No answer. Kreese stares at the ceiling. I'm being reassigned to Brazil, Rabin says. New mission, active operation, come with me. Kreese tells him no. Rabin is quiet for a moment and then asks the question that cuts straight through. Your comfortable life, the one you just tried to end, that's the life you want to go back to? Kreese goes to Brazil. He's immediately, deeply underwhelmed. He expected something dangerous and got a luxury high-rise in a neighborhood that looks like someone transplanted Pacific Palisades into South America. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows. A refrigerator stocked with things Kreese doesn't recognize. Rabin's wife is warm. His 2 younger kids are running through the apartment like furniture is a suggestion rather than a fact of life. Kreese stands in the entrance hallway calculating how long he can survive this before he needs to find another wall. Then the oldest daughter walks in. She's 17, maybe 18, and within 30 seconds of meeting Kreese, she's already taking him apart. They brought you here for the mission, didn't they? It's not a question, it's an indictment. Rabin starts to smooth it over, explains she's been hostile since the move, pulled from her school, her friends, her whole life, and relocated to a country she didn't ask to live in. She's entitled to the anger. That's the part nobody in this apartment is saying out loud. She looks at Kreese like she can see exactly how damaged he is. She's not wrong. The next morning, work begins. Rabin takes Kreese to the Abona complex, a development project funded by the government, the kind of thing President Carmo puts his name on and points at during speeches about progress. The elections are close. Carmo's opponents see him as a man who built towers for the rich while the poor drowned in the flood, and the terrorist factions want him gone before the ballots open. The CIA is providing security support. Kreese is going to meet Brado, Chief of Presidential Security, and Brado is going to brief him on the threat landscape. Brado looks at Kreese like he's returned a rental car that came back missing pieces. "I know your file," Brado says, and then proceeds to go through it item by item, the combat record, the deployments, the operational history, before landing on the part he actually wants to talk about. 4 years ago, 1 mission, 1 catastrophic failure, 12 men dead, a resignation letter, and whatever Kreese has been since then, which Brado makes very clear does not inspire confidence. Rabin steps in. Kreese is the best soldier he's ever served with, period. Brado, unconvinced, produces a handgun and sets it on the table. Standard test. Take it apart. 16 seconds. The second Kreese's fingers close around the grip, the room tilts. The Mexico City footage plays in his peripheral vision like a reel that can't be paused, the bodies on the floor, the sound of the shots, his own face in the surveillance monitor's reflection. He fights through it. His hands start moving, but they're moving wrong, like they belong to someone who learned this skill in a different life. He gets halfway through the disassembly and one of Brado's security men hits him, a test within a test, and Kreese just absorbs it. Doesn't flinch, doesn't respond, just stands there. Brado turns to Rabin and delivers his verdict. "You brought me a broken man for a presidential protection detail." Outside in the corridor, Kreese tells Rabin he was right to come, coming was a mistake. Rabin doesn't accept that. "You just need to warm up, you're in or you're out, those are the only choices." That night, dinner with the family, Kreese lasts about 20 minutes before he grabs his jacket and walks. Rabin follows him to the bathroom, hands him a card. Milo, a woman who does transport work across the city, knows every neighborhood, can get him anywhere he needs to go without an explanation. "You won't survive here alone," Rabin says, "not without someone who knows these streets." Kreese looks at his own face in the mirror for a long time. Then Rabin's oldest daughter appears in the doorway behind him, because she's apparently been watching the whole conversation. "Did the speech work?" she asks. "He gives that one a lot. Everything he does is for everyone else, that's always the story." She thinks her father operates on self-interest dressed up as sacrifice, that the moves of devotion are really just moves. Kreese doesn't argue with her. He tells her about a satellite phone call from a transport aircraft, somewhere over a mountain range, somewhere cold, before a drop zone neither of them would talk about afterward. Rabin called her on the satellite phone. She was 9 years old and terrified of falling asleep. He sang her the song, the one from when she was small. Over a crackling line 40,000 feet in the air, minutes before a mission that might have killed him. She tries not to let it land. It lands anyway. She looks at the coin her father pressed into her palm earlier, old, worn, smooth, the kind of thing a family passes around for luck when they're not saying "I love you" directly, and goes quiet. Cut to underground. A storage facility on the edge of the industrial district. 2 white cargo vans sit inside, crates labeled as produce stacked floor to ceiling. The crates are not produce. A motorcycle idles at the service entrance, rider dressed in black, face fully covered. Someone named Faraz is behind this. We don't know who Faraz is yet. We just know the vans are loaded and moving on a schedule, and whatever happens next was decided weeks ago in a room we haven't seen yet. The next morning, Rabin's daughter tries to make it back to the apartment before dawn. She's out late, complicated reasons, complicated company, and she's cutting it close. She turns the corner toward home and 2 white cargo vans come through the intersection ahead of her, fast, a motorcycle drafting behind them. The near miss throws her off her bike and onto the pavement. Hard. She scrambles up, rides the last 3 blocks, and slips inside the building with maybe 4 minutes to spare before her father's alarm goes off. She makes it barely. Then the building she was just standing in front of comes down. Not a controlled implosion, not a small structural failure. A chain reaction collapse that starts on the ground floor and eats its way upward, floor by floor, in a sequence that takes 45 seconds and leaves nothing standing above 2 stories. The president's flagship project, Rabin's apartment, everything. She's standing on the sidewalk, she watches it happen, her father was inside. Over 600 people die. The government announces within hours that the People's Revolutionary Front, a known anti-Carmo faction, has claimed responsibility. Brado finds Kreese and tells him the girl survived. She's the only witness. She saw the vans before the explosion, and she won't talk to anyone. Kreese goes to her himself. He finds her sitting outside the wreckage in one of the emergency camps, photographers getting their shots, officials walking past with clipboards. He tells the men around her to back off. Then he sits beside her and makes her a single promise: don't say a word to anyone until I guarantee safe passage back to the United States. You have something they need, that's your leverage, use it. For the first time since the blast, she breathes. Kreese negotiates her terms: safe housing for the night, a private plane in the morning, In return, she gives him what she saw. Brado pushes back. The president pushes back harder. Kreese looks at both of them and says simply, "You need me more than I need either of you." She gets what she's asking for. They fold. Late that night, alone in a borrowed room, Kreese takes his handgun apart in the dark, reassembles it under 8 seconds. He does it again and again. Something in him that had gone offline for 4 years starts to come back online, not with fanfare, not with relief, just quietly, the way a muscle remembers something after months of rest. He's not healed, he's not okay, but he's pointing in a direction again, and that turns out to be enough for now. Morning, he finds Rabin's daughter already awake and wound tight. He tells her about his brother's emergency surgery, their mother furious at the surgeon for being cold, clinical, processing the crisis without visible feeling. And the surgeon looking at her and saying, "You don't need a doctor who suffers with you, you need one who's curious about the problem. Curiosity is what saves lives. Emotion is what gets in the way." "That's what we're doing right now," Kreese tells her. "We're being the doctors." They move out in 2 vehicles. Kreese is scanning the street before they've gone 2 blocks. He sees the men positioned at intervals, too still, too aware, watching without bothering to pretend they're not. His brain processes it in under 2 seconds. The enemy knows their route. There's a leak inside the security team. Change direction, military compound right now. The driver turns. The men on the street disappear immediately, not scattered, disappear. Organized withdrawal. These are not amateurs. At the military compound, Brado meets them. The plane will depart from here instead. Kreese insists on conducting the debrief alone, no guards, no oversight, just him and the girl. Brado objects. Kreese tells him the reason: someone in your unit has been feeding movement data to the other side. Until you find who, every person you put in that room is a risk. Brado backs down. Inside, alone, Kreese walks her through the night slowly, without pressure, no timeline. She talks through everything: the late hour, the route home, the intersection, the vans, the motorcycle. He presses gently on the details: make and model of the vans, condition of the motorcycle, anything distinctive. Her brain is fractured and she knows it. Too much happened too fast and the memories are overlapping at the edges. Kreese switches approaches. He blindfolds her, lines up 5 photographs of white cargo vans, slaps the table hard, sharp and sudden, and pulls the blindfold. Point fast, don't think. Her finger goes immediately to one image. She closes her eyes again and pushes herself back to that intersection. The vans crossing, the motorcycle behind them, and in the moment when her bike went down, the rider looked back at her. He lifted the visor. Just a second, she saw his face. She starts to describe it, but the explosion keeps cutting through the memory, the building coming down, her father, everything. She starts crying and can't stop. Kreese shuts it down. She's done. He takes what she gave him and goes to Brado, get her on that plane today. Then the tarmac erupts. Armed men come in from the perimeter and take out the security detail in under 60 seconds. The pilot goes down. Kreese is already running. He reaches the aircraft as one of the attackers gets inside the cabin with the girl. She throws herself into the pilot's seat. No flight experience, no plan, just pure instinct to put something between her and what's coming. Kreese drags the attacker out and takes a blow to the head that sends white sparks across his vision. He doesn't go down. He gets the plane moving down the runway far enough to scatter the remaining attackers, kills the engines, and gets them both into the first vehicle he can reach. The man from the attack goes in the trunk. Kreese drives. He calls Milo. She answers. He tells her he needs a favor. She says what she always says: a favor you walk into blind is a door that doesn't have a handle on your side. He explains: a teenage girl, her family just died. People are trying to make sure she joins them. One night of safe housing is all he needs. Her terms: not money, papers, real documents, legal exit from Brazil for herself and her daughter. Done. Milo's neighborhood operates on its own economy. The gang structure here functions as local government protection, enforcement, community tax. A man named Bito controls the block. He's Milo's contact, and Kreese's money buys the girl protection for the night. Kreese pays without negotiating. He shows the girl to her room. Small, not comfortable, safe. She looks at him. You're leaving me alone again. I'm worth more to you outside this building, he says. There's a man in the trunk who's going to give me the names I need. He takes the man, Teju, to a workshop owned by Milo's cousin, sits him down, sets a small vial on the table, explains without raising his voice that the liquid inside dissolves skin on contact and doesn't stop until it hits bone. Then he asks whether Teju would like to share what he knows or experience the compound firsthand. Teju talks. The man behind all of it is Asmar. Teju's crew was contracted separately. Their sole objective was to eliminate the girl and Kreese. Asmar arranged the whole thing. and Asmar has been tracking Kreese's movements since the safe house. Someone changed the escape route deliberately, steering them toward the military base because troop numbers there are lower. The airport attack was planned. It was a trap built inside a trap. Kreese wipes the compound off Teju's face before the damage becomes permanent. Then he performs a procedure on Teju's chest without anesthesia, without much sympathy, and places a small explosive device adjacent to his heart. He explains, "If you run, I press a button, you stop." Teju does not run. Back in the room, the girl is holding herself together by a narrow margin. Kreese tells her he needs one more thing, a photograph. Her, him, Levro, all of them looking like they've been through something catastrophic. Makeup, fake injuries, crime scene level convincing. Milo does the work. Kreese sends the photos to Asmar through Teju's connection, proof of death, a closed contract. He leaves the girl a small prepaid phone. She looks at it. "You keep walking away." "Every time I leave," he tells her, "I'm walking toward the thing that ends this. That's the only direction I'm moving." He sets the trap, sends Teju back to Asmar with instructions for a meetup, follows him into the storage facility. But Teju sees an opening, grabs a piece of rebar off the floor and makes his move. Kreese hits the detonator. The explosion brings Asmar's men in from every side. Kreese runs hard and gets out clean, but the thread to Asmar is broken. What Asmar finds in the aftermath, a business card on the floor of the storage unit. Milo's name, Milo's number. He pulls the thread. Two men arrive at Milo's door with guns and a straightforward ultimatum. She drives to the neighborhood under their watch. The signal lights in the building, 2 flashes, the neighborhood's distress code, go out and come back within seconds. The message travels building by building in under 10 minutes. Fico reads it and knows immediately, whatever's happening, the girl is at the center of it. She sees Asmar's men and runs. Inside Asmar's home, because that is in fact where Kreese has spent the last hour, he has the man's son positioned between himself and every exit, and the man's wife in the home office behind locked blast doors. Asmar's real name is Gabriel. He sits across from Kreese and understands clearly that his cooperation is the only currency that matters right now. Gabriel talks. The explosion was not a revolutionary act. It was a business transaction between Gabriel and an imprisoned man named Faraz, and at the top of the arrangement, people with serious institutional power. Faraz came out of prison furious and ready to settle debts. Gabriel provided the logistics, the white vans, the building schematics, the timing. And then, afterward, Teju's crew was activated to eliminate the witnesses, the girl because she saw the vans, and Kreese because he was close enough to connect the pieces. Kreese listens. Then he picks something sharp off the desk and removes 2 of Gabriel's fingers to clarify that the conversation requires complete information, not a summary. He wants every name, everyone in those vans, everyone who knew. 12 names complete. But the one name Gabriel doesn't have is the motorcyclist. Faraz brought him in through a separate channel. Nobody else in the operation ever saw his face. Gabriel swears on his son's life he doesn't know. Kreese photographs the list and transmits everything to Batten, his CIA contact, the man who's been helping him quietly from a distance, for immediate forwarding to the appropriate agencies. His phone rings. It's the girl's voice. Levro's been grabbed. She's been grabbed. They're being held. And something in Kreese's chest goes wrong. The flashback hits before he can stop it. Mexico City, the cameras, the floor, 12 people, his plan. He feels himself starting to come apart at the edges, standing in Gabriel's study with blood on his hands and a dead man's name on his lips. He holds on, forces himself back into the room, makes Gabriel call his man, arranges the exchange, the girl and Levro, in return for Gabriel walking away clean. The exchange takes place the next morning in empty desert outside the city. Both sides appear, no weapons drawn, the handoff is clean, both groups walk. The girl reaches Kreese and her legs stop working the way they're supposed to. She grabs him, cries into his shoulder. "I thought you weren't coming back for me." He says, "I was always coming back." The government announces mass arrests. The story, as far as the public knows, is resolved. Except Batten calls again, insisting on flying out personally. Too eager, too specific. The kind of helpfulness that has a hidden shape inside it. Kreese asks the girl to search photographs of Batten. She pulls images from official records and goes completely still. It's the face from the motorcycle. The man who's been receiving Kreese's intelligence reports this entire time. The man who's been shaping the narrative from inside the CIA. The man who was physically present the night the building came down. Batten. Kreese needs Faraz. He needs the man who knows everything, who set all of this in motion, and he needs him now before Batten lands in Brazil and closes whatever remaining windows are still open. Getting into the prison requires becoming invisible. Kreese steals a guard's uniform, hides himself inside a cleaning vehicle, and rides into the compound undetected. He plants small charges on cell corridor doors, stagger detonations, maximum confusion, and waits for the alarm to clear the population. In the chaos of the evacuation, he finds Faraz, tapes his mouth, and gets them both into the laundry facility below the main block. He removes the tape, he asks his questions, and Faraz tells him something that makes the floor feel different beneath his feet. The explosion wasn't terrorism, it wasn't ideology, it was electoral strategy. President Carmo commissioned the attack on his own development project, 600 people, his own showpiece, his own name on the sign out front to generate national outrage 2 weeks before the election. The logic manufactured crisis creates manufactured unity. Redirect the public's focus from his corruption toward a conveniently available enemy. He needed an organization to frame. The People's Revolutionary Front fit. He needed someone to execute. He found Faraz in prison, held his family, and gave him a choice that wasn't really a choice. And he needed one outside contractor, someone with operational knowledge. Someone who could supervise the execution and make certain none of the forensic threads led back to Sao Paulo's presidential residence. He brought in an American intelligence asset. Batten. That's who was on the motorcycle, Faraz says. That's who was supervising the final stage. Kreese doesn't speak. There's more, Faraz continues. The CIA has already released a statement. You're named as a co-conspirator. They have recordings, engineered, edited, but convincing. They have the girl listed as a hostage you're using as cover. You are the story right now. They've buried you alive. Kreese pulls a blade. He holds it. He looks at Faraz, the man who helped burn 600 people for someone else's election cycle. He makes a decision that surprises himself. You have recordings of the president, of Batten, of the security chief. Every conversation, every instruction, enough to end all 3 of them. Get me out of here, the files go public. The extraction is not quiet. Ivan Kreese's old forger, the man who builds identities out of paperwork and patience, sends a vehicle disguised as a bomb disposal unit through the main gate while his helicopter opens fire over the prison yard to create maximum atmospheric disruption. Kreese walks Faraz through 3 locked corridors while the alarm screams, guards scatter, and prisoners test every door they've been told they can't open. They reach the vehicle. They go. Back at Ivan's compound, the plan assembles itself on a table covered in old maps and coffee cups. They need to draw Batten and the president's security chief into a controlled situation. They need the men to incriminate themselves by reacting visibly, panically, to a threat that doesn't actually exist yet. Kreese records his own voice on tape, specific, calm, delivering information only he could know, and has Milo planted in the storage unit beneath Faraz's former apartment. Then the team stages a robbery of Faraz's old place, visible enough to generate witness reports, sloppy enough to look like someone desperately searching for something they're terrified of someone else finding first. The plan collapses when an elderly neighbor recognizes Kreese through a window and calls the police before anyone can finish the scene. Sirens, time collapsing. The team scrambles toward the garage. Levro, quiet, bookish, the kid who couldn't hold a gun steady 2 days ago, reads the situation and without being asked, steps out of the car and walks directly toward the approaching officers. He surrenders himself. He tells them he was there for a robbery, that the man he was with mentioned something about a recording, some important figure on tape. He didn't catch details. It's enough. Batten and the security chief receive the report within 40 minutes. The thought of a recording in that storage unit, existing, accessible, potentially in someone's hands already, is more than either of them can rationally absorb. They go themselves. They can't trust this to anyone else. They get inside, lock the door, press play. Kreese's voice fills the room. I know you expected someone else, but since you're playing this, in about 20 minutes you'll notice a burning sensation in your sinuses. The compound I treated this tape with is slow acting and unpleasant. Then both of you will die. They call for emergency transport. They call for hospital-level care. They call for everyone. They walk themselves directly into the one place Kreese has been waiting. The girl sees Batten crossing the hospital entrance and moves before thought catches up to instinct. Ivan has her in a laundry cart and through a service exit before Batten can orient himself. Batten chases. Kreese intercepts. The fight is long and ugly and entirely personal, two men who once trusted each other destroying everything between them, corridor by corridor. When Batten finally says, "Come on, we end this together, we go back to before," Kreese hits him again. Then the girl screams. The security chief has her, gun to her head, against a wall. He's a man who has lost every single thing he built: his career, his safety, his future, and his psychology has compressed to a single equation: if he burns, she burns first. Kreese drops his weapon. He looks at the girl. He makes the smallest movement with his eyes, just the eyes, referencing a night in a Sao Paulo hotel kitchen when he showed her something. An elbow, a rotation. The way the body can break a grip if the timing is exact and the commitment is total. She does it. The security chief's arm breaks contact for half a second. Kreese covers the ground between them and takes the gun. He also takes a bullet in his side, not lethal but bad enough to make the last 15 seconds of the fight cost him everything he has left. Batten hits the floor and doesn't get up. The security chief is contained. Faraz's release mechanism triggers automatically, Deadman's switch, timed backup, every conversation documented and packaged, and the recordings go to every newsroom that matters within the hour. The president is removed from office. The election is suspended. A new one is called. Brazil breathes. Milo and her daughter stay. She watches the new president make his promises and decides she'll believe it when she sees the results, but she'll stay and watch. Levro gets his papers. Kreese made sure of that, and he and Fico leave together. Two people from the same neighborhood who found in the middle of all this that they were made of something they didn't know they had. The girl goes home to the United States to bury what's left of her family, and Kreese goes with her because he's the only person left who knew her father, and she needs that right now. At the airport after the service, standing in a terminal that smells like recycled air and long distances, his phone rings. The director of American intelligence. An offer, come back, same unit, real work, a reason to get up in the morning that doesn't involve a burlap sack and a bottle. He thinks about the brake line. He thinks about the wall. He thinks about a satellite phone call over a mountain range and a father singing a song to a kid who was afraid to sleep. He thinks about 12 names on a warehouse floor in Mexico City and whether carrying those names forever has to mean the same thing it meant 4 years ago. He says yes. Some men need a war to feel alive. John Kreese just needed a reason to stop dying. If this one stayed with you, you already know what to do.